Welcome back to Beyond Chronic Burnout, the podcast where we dig beneath the surface of burnout to uncover the strategies that fuel lasting resilience, especially for neurodivergent and disabled adults. Here, we guide listeners to create healthier, more fulfilling lives by going beyond the norm, embracing tools, insights, and perspectives designed to prevent burnout and encourage well being. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome my good friend Coco Stroppelli, a talented self taught artist and writer whose work embodies the journey of being ADHD autistic and also having dyscalculia and dyspraxia. Coco's art and writing create a safe, inclusive space for all emotions, advocating against ableism and breaking down stereotypical representations of neurodiversity. Her journey into entrepreneurship and creative resilience is nothing short of inspiring. Coco sheds a light on how neurodivergent individuals can find harmony, not balance, in their work and life, customizing their environments to meet ever changing needs. Coco's art was part of last year's Energize and Restore Experience Day gift box. I adore my personal collection of her bird series, including Your Productivity Does Not Define Your Worth. In this episode, Coco will share her experiences of navigating burnout, the unique challenges and rewards of entrepreneurship as a neurodivergent person, and how she creates accessible spaces for herself. If you're ready to rethink what work and life can look like in a world that often doesn't fit us, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in.
Step out of the shadows, feel the power rise. Catch the spark inside you, let your spirit fly. Beyond the chronic burnout, Carole Jean's your guide. Find your steady rhythm, nice joy on the tide. Flourish forward, bright and bold. Leave the burnout far behind. In this journey, hearts unfold. Power's yours, seek and find.
Oh my gosh, Coco, welcome to the show. I am so excited to be talking about creating accessible work and life with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Listen, there are so many things we've talked about over the last couple of years since we met, and everything really does revolve around not just the work that we're doing that sparks our joy and fuels our creativity, but it's also about our life. And I think one of the things you mentioned to me in the green room before we hit record today was, yeah, it's about creating accessible workplaces and work that works for us, but it's also about having an accessible life. And I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Before we get into the juicy goodness, share, what does an accessible work and life mean for you? What is that for you?
Well, the first thing, I think it's a life with the least possible pain as possible. The more comfort that we can find and the more space to actually breathe and to be able to think. So to find space for a clear mind as well, to find space to keep both minds and body healthy. It's something that touches all the spheres of life, that it's balance of all the things basically that must be found.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's really interesting. When I started over a decade ago into this, let me find some comfort, let me find some relief from the suffering that I have, the agony that I've been in for most all of my life, to my conscious memory. And it began with just that desire of, I just wanted comfort. I wanted some space to breathe and not feel like I was always in this hurry, this rush, like I was always behind. I was
Yeah.
always behind. I always felt that way. And as I stepped into this, I started with wanting balance, right? And we hear that term work-life balance all the time. And and I thought, okay, that's the goal, right? That's what I'm supposed, quote unquote, supposed to be doing, having work and life balance. And I'd never had it. I didn't know what it was. And I thought, okay, well, I'm supposed to have this much time here and this much time here. Like this isn't work. And so therefore I need to balance that with friends and family and alone time. And I tried to balance, and I noticed that the approach with the thought of the word balance and how I had defined it, because we usually think about the scale, right?
Mm.
And like
Like
finding that
equal
middle.
numerous levels. Yeah.
Yeah, the equilibrium. And I noticed I was doing so much mental calculation. It's like spoon theory. It's exhausting. I was calculating constantly. Well, if I do this, then I need to adjust over here in my life. And if I do something here in my life, I need to adjust over here in my work. And it was really taking so much from me, and I wasn't finding the relief. I wasn't finding the space or the balance. And one day I was reading something around music, and I know you love music too. You like to listen to your music and roller skate. And I love that. It's so fun when I see those videos you post on Instagram, which by the way, you guys have to go follow her. But I started looking at and thinking about harmony and harmonics. When you listen to music, everything is a different beat. I mean, it has an overall, we're connecting on a main thread, but every instrument or every voice or whatever is doing its own part, and it might be different from the one next to it, but together it all works. It harmonizes. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's it. I don't want balance. I want harmony. So
Yeah, that's a
it
word.
may not be symmetrical, it may be asymmetrical, but it gives me harmony.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very correct. And I mean, everything in nature is not symmetrical. There's always something that some refer as imperfection, but at the end of the day, that's exactly what makes something perfect, that gives it body and texture and makes it interesting and worth giving a look at it, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I think that when we can start to approach, instead of that work-life balance, which I think you do so beautifully in inaccessible work-life harmony that we're going to share with folks today. I am so excited. But before we get into all the nitty and the gritties and all the fun things, I always love to offer an opportunity for my guests to share your personal burnout experience. And Coco, we talked about this, over our own shared health conditions and those kind of things, what burnout feels like. What has that been for you? How does burnout show up for you, and how does it impact your life?
Yeah, for me, it's like being in a pit, very like deep down in the dark, and not finding the energy to do the things I need or I love, having to isolate myself from also the people that I love, and I find it very hard, and to have also, I don't know, it's like I have to keep working because I'm a freelancer, and if I stop, I don't have any more source of income. So to have to push through this thing and have to kind of cancel all the things around the work at the end of the day, because I can then only just do that, and this does not help me to recover from it in a way. And yeah, it's I think it really drives also to depression easily, because then, if you remove all the fun things from your life, it starts to become a bit gray out there.
It does. And you shared something that I think everybody doesn't always like consciously identify, but we feel it. And that is that when we start to go into burnout, we tend to as like a protective mechanism for our energy, we begin to self-isolate. we begin to say, no, I can't do that. I cancel that. Or gosh, I love doing that, but I just don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the energy to go do that. So I'm going to say no. And because I've got something else that I absolutely have to do. So the fun thing's going to have to wait. And I think that happens so often, and we get a little further deeper. And I think that that actually can make burnout worse as we self-isolate, trying to preserve our energy, that we're not choosing the things that actually give us restoration and recharging, which are those playful, fun, laughter things. And sometimes we show up for them or we want to do them. Then we're like, I just don't like the depression part. I don't feel like laughing. There's nothing that feels fun, even though I love that. And normally that's the thing that like makes me feel amazing and so happy. Right now, I feel so horrible. It makes me feel even worse that I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of guilt on top of the guilt also, because when you know that these are the things that are going to make you feel better, then you're like entering into some sort of self-blame of why am I not able to do this for my own sake right now? And it's just some sort of endless escalation. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The I'm beating myself up because I'm
Yes.
not doing the things, but I need to not do the things because everything is just too much right now.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. So from that place where you were identified and learned that you're wonderfully wired, which, what was that, how old were you when you were identified? What was that experience for you? Because it is such in late identification, it is such a host of mixed feelings. And like when we begin to like become aware of like, holy cow, I've been autistic and ADHD my whole life. And how did people miss this? What was that experience for you, Coco?
Yeah, it's been kind of incremental. I don't know how to better put it, but
Perfect.
it's very young. I knew there was something like different in me. That's what I would say when I was a teenager, and I just couldn't find what. But I was searching and searching relentlessly. And I found out about ADHD when I was about 18 or 19, and I self-identified. But because there were absolutely no resources for that, I just, okay, what do I do next? Nothing. So I just put it in a folder. And later, around age 30, 35, I learned about autism and women and non-binary persons. And then I was like, okay, it's me, it's the missing parts. That's the bit that was missing from ADHD. But it was my own identification started there, and I had no access also to any community, any resources, anything that could really show me what it was to actually to help me to have the right outlook I should have had on my life in order to be able to set things in place that could have supported me really. So it was a long journey of sitting in this self-identification thing until just last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. I have this calculation. Years and numbers.
Me
Never
too.
trust me with that. And it's some year and not so long ago.
And I have time blindness, so it's even worse.
But maybe it's the same then, because I have no idea never when things happen. It could
Totally.
have been like 10 years ago. But yeah, relatively
It
not
feels
so
like
long
it was
ago.
yesterday.
Yeah, I decided to go to the formal diagnosis with the psychiatrist and so on, and then I got this confirmation that I thought I didn't really need, but somehow it helped to have these words put there by some very capable also diagnostician who heard me and knew me in a way, because she knew what I was going through. And I think this part, of being seen, be it through a doctor or other people who share the similarities, exchanging with you, and other people like us who have so many common things in our lives, really gave me the hope necessary, like the motor to start to think, okay, I'm this now. I think I rewinded my life 30 times to understand and make all the connections that need to be made. Now, from this, I can start making changes in my life to accommodate myself, since outside it's not very accommodating by default.
No, no, it's not. And Coco, from that place of identification and then really starting to, finally get in a place where you were finding people and you were connecting and you learn about autistic burnout, like the awareness of how that impacts us differently from this standard, like you just feel apathetic around work and you just feel, tired at work kind of thing. But it's more this work life invasion of exhaustion. When you started to pinpoint those things and then looked back at the times in your life where you had experienced what you now know was burnout, was there a deeper place of like, oh, wow, I was so hard on myself, or I was really beating myself up because I was in burnout that time, but I didn't know it, and now I do? I mean, what has that journey been for you?
Yeah, actually, there was lots of beating myself up for sure. I was really evil with myself, is what I think today, you know. I think I recognized the burnout already, even pre-identification, because I had hit rock bottom and in places in which I used to be like so full of wonder, I would feel nothing else. And I would be like, okay, I should feel so happy right now. Why am I like, okay, nothing is happening here? And it impacted so much my health and my sleep and so on that I could not, just ignore it. And there were circumstances always around this burnout in my life that somehow made it also quite obvious why it was happening. But what changed dramatically was that I learned that, amongst all the things that we receive, all the information we receive in the world about our mental health, about burnout, these things are always neuronormative. They're not meant for our autistic and ADHD brain. And so we feel like a need to comply, even if in these things that are supposed to be for our own health, and this drives even more problems. And I wish I had known that I was just different than this like average discourse there, because then I could have started thinking about what helps me and not what is supposed to help me because it helps the rest of the population.
Right? Oh my gosh. And I think I don't know that I can say that there has been one person to date. Now, there may be in the future, but to date, I haven't had a conversation with another autistic person who has not shared the experience of pushing themselves beyond reasonable capacity because of the external expectations and not feeling safe in those environments. And I think number one, that leads to burnout and chronic burnout. And I think that when we talk about burnout and employment, it's the underemployment impact, not just the unemployment impact, that we have to talk about when we say burnout and employment. Because when I know for me, and I can only speak for me on this one, every time that I left a job, a position, even companies that I owned, I was so burnt out because I was pushing myself beyond capacity. I left. And I would always blame the job, saying it was too much or it wasn't a good fit for me. And I would pivot and I would think, okay, it was the job, but then I would internalize it and go, I couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't maintain it. I wasn't good enough. to do that long term. I could do it really, really well in the short term. But then, like, long term, I couldn't maintain it. I couldn't sustain that pushing past my capacity constantly. It would be one thing if I did it every now and then, like I think most people do, apparently. I didn't know that. But when we talk about burnout and employment, like the impact of our financial well-being, what has been your experience, Coco?
Well, it's been a rocky road. um, yeah, so when I finished my studies, I was already, I suppose, in a burnout. I've stopped my studies because I couldn't take it anymore, because the entire school system was absolutely not accessible for me. And I was suffering every day from that and from the lack of accommodations. Of course, I didn't know these words back then. I didn't know why I was suffering, but now it's so obvious. And there was the bullying too, and all these things that's made me like, okay, I'm not going to be in a room with so many people anymore in my life. So I decided right away to not be employed. And I went straight into being a freelancer. And the thing is, I was very lonely in this because nobody in my surroundings was taking such a way. And of course, it was not the traditional thing to do. So my family, my friends were like, what are
you doing?
Yeah.
This makes no sense to us, Coco. Why are you doing this? Just go get a regular job. Get a real job, quote unquote.
Exactly. And but it was really tough because, of course, when you're your own like boss and employee all at once, it's double the job, and you have to hunt for those clients. And this was really, really hard. And now I also know that, on an interview with a person, like I'm really, it's not one of my skills to convince people that they need me to do anything. And so I know I would have failed these job interviews like many other autistic persons. And even though the road was difficult, I'm glad I didn't take the road of employment, because I would have just, my self-esteem was already in such a bad shape, but then I would have been even worse.
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking about, as you were talking about this, and this was something Jackie Coursey and I talked about back in August, and it's not recognizing, not honoring, like when we finish our studies and we're moving into the work world, most of us are exhausted and in some degree of burnout. And we, like, traditionally, it's like, okay, get your degree and then go get a job immediately. There's no breathing room to go, I just finished this big thing. I've pushed myself to reach this final destination here. I did it. And now it's like you're going into the next big thing already depleted. And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking how I did that and how you made a different choice. And you're like my hero, right? You are my hero right now. The fact that you were smart and really said, that's not it for me. I'm going to go freelance and I'm just going to start my own thing. And that's so huge, because there was a lot, I don't know, for me, there was a ton of like guilt and shame if I didn't go do the next thing and get the job. Or when I did start my own business, finally, it took me a little bit to get there. Then it was like, if I didn't have a lot of work coming in, because I did like seasonal work where there would be peaks and valleys, a lot like creative work. And it would be like, oh my gosh, I would panic. I would be afraid that there wouldn't be money coming in. But then there was a lot of like guilt and shame that when I was in burnout, running your own business is really stressful. And it would cause these periods of burnout. I mean, I walked away from 2 businesses that I built and I was doing really well, but I was so burned out. And then I was so ashamed that I had done that and had let other, in my mind, let other people down because I walked away. What has that been for you in this journey? Because you were way smarter than me and you were just like, I'm freelancing. But I know that
Nah.
comes with a whole host. But that comes with a whole host of its own kind of guilt and shame if you get sick along the way or something
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, it's I think this is the particularly tough part of being a freelancer and entrepreneur and doing things. And as you said it yourself, you have to give up things sometimes. And sometimes it's things that we don't want to give up, or at least the idea of what we could have built with this thing we have to give up, and it's kind of like a dream that that goes away. So there's a lot of grief, I think, in a life made of so many projects, and I have tried many things and left many things as well, and but I kept trying again new things. But I don't know if it's smart or if it's just like I don't have any sense of what needs to be done. One of both, but so far I'm still out here, so it's good. But
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, yes.
all these endeavors, they have tired me, and I think there was something out of survival as well, because if you're doing a job that's like exhausting you, it means you're kind of inflicting yourself stuff on your mental health, on your physical health, and this means that you're going in the wrong path. And if but still, if you're not managing what you're doing, if it doesn't fulfill you, if it tires too much, any of these things, not necessarily all together, but and then you have, okay, I have to take another path here, but where do I go? And then you have to start something from scratch, and you surely know that the intensity of work needed to start something from zero, the things we have to learn, the things we have to
The
connect.
stuff that we don't know we have to learn along the way that shows up.
Yes. Yeah, and I bet many of us are so perfectionist, like we think we have to do everything perfect from zero. And so there's this kind of gap of like, okay, I'm doing these things, I need to do a new thing, but then it means I have to spend even more energy that I'm spending right now to make this career change or work change or project change. And most of the time we're already in the burnout, and it's like mission impossible. So it's just piling up and piling up until we explode, and then we don't function anymore somehow. Yeah, it's what I've been through several times, and now I've learned how to pace myself a little bit, and how things can wait, even if those are the things that I want the most on this planet. It's like there is the necessity to first leave and then to do the nicer things. And but it's always, like we said at the start, this balance or not balance depending on the definition, that is so hard to find it. And it changes, right? Because we're more tired in some time, and some parts of us work differently in different circumstances. So, and I think that's what baffles me the most, is that there is no constants. So we learn about what we need, but what we need is what we need now. Tomorrow it's another story. So it's this ever-changing needs is what has been one of the trickiest things to accommodate.
Oh, like, just pause on that for a second, y'all. Our needs are constantly changing. They're not always predictable because life isn't predictable. It can feel like this moving target that can be very exhaustive. And I think as neurodistinct humans, one of the number 4 biggest energy drains in my research is a lack of order, structure, and consistency. And when we're in burnout, number 1, I think burnout is where our dreams and passions go to die along with our order, structure, and consistency.
Yes.
The only thing consistent is that we're exhausted. And that really, thank you for saying that, Coco, because I think that is so exhausting for so many of us. Because you're like, okay, I've recognized that I need this. I've put something in place to make sure that it's now happening so I can feel better. And then something new shows up tomorrow.
Exactly. It's never ending.
And then you're just like, but I barely have the energy to do what I figured out yesterday. And you want me to do it again today?
Yeah.
This is truly why burnout restoration requires community. It requires support. It requires getting yourself out of isolation, because truly that is where it comes in. We've got to have support during it. And it's the place that feels the least safe, the biggest hairy scary, because of the guilt and the shame that we feel about the safety part of it when we're not, quote unquote, doing it all on our own and
Yeah.
independent.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, a drive for independence and autonomy, when actually we should be seeking the supports and the care that we probably all lacked as late diagnosed. And yeah, it's also a very tricky topic. You're right.
And we carry all of that into our entrepreneurial journeys for those of us who have broken out and said, hey, because some of us, we can absolutely do I work for somebody else and I'm totally happy. I talked to somebody earlier this week and it was such a great conversation. I loved to hear this. She said, I have no desire to start my own business. I am totally happy working with other people for someone else. She said, I'm just looking for the connection outside of this that I can enhance the work that I'm doing with other people. I don't feel a need to do my own thing. And I was like, I love that you're aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the opposite side, I was trying to force myself into doing with other people and working for other people when I really just wanted to break out that box and do my own thing. And I think as a creative person, because I'm also, my undergraduate degree is in fine art, and I love to paint and I love to sculpt, and I'm a creative person. I'm also a scientific person, and so the duality of our beautiful wired brains. But entrepreneurial pursuits and entrepreneurship as a creative, I think there's a lot of out there that hear, oh, you're an artist and you're a freelancer, or you do commission work, whatever it is, however you define yourself. They look at it as like, that's your hobby, right? You're not really making any money. Or people would say, when I was running like an art-based business, it was like, oh, that's just a fun little thing to have on the side. No, this is like the full-time real deal thing. And I think there's like this perception that somehow it's not if it's a creative pursuit, somehow it's not a quote unquote real job somehow. And so then you're like not only going up against that with the world, but the people in your relationships, family and partners and that kind of stuff. But then you're also like in yourself going, no, this is real work. And this is work that, yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it is enhancing a visual element, but it's doing something really important. And one of the things I adore about your work, Coco, is that your art is a movement. It is a social movement because, y'all, I'm going to share something. One of the things that I love that Coco made and she sent to me, and it is my Neuro Spicy Parrot pin. And it has this darling little pepper in its mouth. But the work that you do and just how you speak about your work, it isn't just about, you haven't just created a business and a way for you to have income and also share your beautiful skills and abilities, but you've created this social movement, the social discussion around what it is in your birds to be different.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I think, I needed this purpose in my work, and that is why, this life and work for me are so bound together. It's because it gives me so much joy to be able to share about some parts of me that were always hidden and contribute like others have contributed for me. How did I get finally identified, diagnosed, and everything? Is because other people like talked about themselves and shared their things, be it through a blog article, a video, or an artwork. And I felt I needed to give something back to this, to this, and at the same time to celebrate and learn to celebrate who I was beyond this guilt and this shame and this feeling so different and broken at times. And this journey is that of many others. And although we all have different paths, I think there is something kind of that binds us in this. And yeah, I felt like some sort of calling there, some mission to write and paint about it.
Oh, your birds bring, and just sort of the little sayings that you put with them in your work, not just around, the beauty of what you create, but the intention and the movement that you have started in your work of starting conversations even. I included your beautiful postcards in our Energize and Restore Experience Day box last year. And everybody commented that got their cards, because I made sure everybody got a variety of these beautiful cards, that you had. And there was this different feeling. There was this relatability. There was this like, oh my God, this was my favorite. I loved this bird. This one that said this was my favorite. And this was the one that like spoke to my soul. Like that, I needed that. And, I have them up on my mirror at my dressing table. And, there's so many beautiful things that your birds start conversation to really help people go, oh, is that really how you feel around doing certain things? Like that little bird says that, and you're like going, yeah, that's right. And I'm going, I had no idea. I mean, when you've done, shows or people buy your cards or you post them online and you're talking, like, hey, here's my little birdie and here's some little things and some fun stuff that I have. What kind of conversations happen most that people share with you around the work that you do and how you do it?
Well, I think at the table it's a bit more complicated because people tend to like pass, not really stay for conversation. This is something that sometimes I miss. I wonder, if it's because it's here in the country where I live, if it's different in other places in the world, but at least they laugh. So I have these cards, this collection that is Birds Against Bullshit, and that the point is to spark open conversation and also, go against the stereotypes and at the same time use them and appropriate them, because some of these stereotypes are really awesome and to just make something fun and validating out of it. And it never fails that people pass and read them and laugh. And but otherwise online I get feedback of people that feel seen very often, and through the arts, through some of the words that I write, through little zines that I do, which are also illustrated or contain some poetry, people feel very like they connect and they feel less alone. And I have had people tell me this, and I feel really so happy, because then it makes my day, my weeks, my months, everything. It's like I'm so happy when I know something I did could have helped someone just believe a bit more in hope, trust.
Absolutely. And that your experience isn't just like just you, or it's not wrong, it just is. And I love the Birds Against Bullshit because they are funny. They really are. I mean, they are humorous, but it's also like, this is the real. And we're not gonna fall into these social norms of like, this doesn't happen, because like, here's the real of the bird, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I love that. So there's some elements that we're going to dive into here, and it's one of the places we're going to start right now, because I think entrepreneurship looks like this really quick, perfect solution in so many people's minds when they're suffering, they're struggling, they're burning out, working for other people, or even just trying to get a job, and the interview process is so prohibitive, and it's not accessible, and it's not inclusive, and you're just like, well, how the hell am I going to make some money? Maybe I got to start something. And you and I both said before we started, we wanted to make sure that we were having a really authentic conversation around both sides of entrepreneurship. There's the good, there's the bad. Let's start with some of the challenges. What have been the challenges of entrepreneurship for you, Coco?
I think one of the big things, and this related to, go get that support out there, is the loneliness that often comes with it. And the lack of resources, and even the not finding the opportunities and the resources that could have helped us. Because I feel, nobody, I mean, it's not even a thing, it's true. Nobody teaches us how to be an entrepreneur, to be a freelance. So we sometimes don't even imagine that there are things or persons or structures out there that could lend us a hand. And I started like seeing this very late in my entrepreneurship journey, that those things were there, and that maybe, it could have been different. Of course, I cannot go back to the past, but I can maybe try to make something out of them now. but yeah, this being alone with, when there's a problem, you're facing it yourself, and you don't even know how to explain it to someone that doesn't know your work, what it entails, your challenges, because sometimes it's so intricate, so complex, that nobody really can understand what you're going through with this project or with this client. And yeah, so I think this is the biggest thing, is isolating. And then, of course, there is this notion of rest, and what is rest? And is it because for some people, if you're working from home, it means you must be more fresh than anyone else, because you don't have to commute and do this and that.
You let me know about that one.
Yeah, like they have no idea. I just want to get out.
I have to leave my house to rest, because sometimes it's exhausting, because then I'm gonna go work, because it's there.
It's like this prison sometimes. It's everything like can be bad under a certain light, or too much of anything is wrong, as we all know, including hanging too much inside.
Oh,
And
totally.
yeah, it's just a complete, total different reality. And this, to have the majority of people out there not being able to understand the challenges that one can face, I find it tough too.
Yeah. I mean, statistically, most people who go into solopreneurship, which is where most of us start in our entrepreneurial journey, don't make it after a year. If you make it past a year and you get over that third year hump, and you can get between that year 3 to year 5, that's usually where you can start gaining some traction. But it's really about a 5-year journey. That is the most how most people progress through it. And that's sort of the thing, the biggest challenges is that you are alone. You don't have the same types of resources and supports. And most of us, honestly, I think for me, it's like, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what I needed to like show it up. And it was like painful. And then I was like, oh, I think I might need that. And when you talk about resources, I'm in year 4 of my business, and I just learned about a place that, as a for-profit company, that I could go get resources. And I was like, I've been looking for things like this, but I didn't, as all things that tend to happen to me. Anytime I Google search something, it's in my autistic language, and Google does not speak autistic Carole Jean. It just doesn't. I would
Yeah.
like to program it that way, but hey, it hasn't learned me yet. Like, AI tends to be a little better, I think, for me. I kind of have taught it my language, my Carole Jeanisms, I guess. But it's, we just don't always look or know to look for certain resources or supports. And I think that can be a really big challenge. One of the things you and I have both encountered in our entrepreneurship journey is health. Number one, if burnout hits and you're a solopreneur, well, there you stand. It's you. Everything comes to a screeching halt. If you get sick, you get the flu, something happens, you break a leg, whatever, everything comes to a screeching halt because it's just you. And if it's, something you mentioned earlier was, we're also wearing all the hats. So I'm having to go out and make the sales to get the clients. I'm having to do the marketing. I'm having to do the back end structure. Plus I'm doing the work. Plus I'm doing the follow-up. What are some of those big challenges that you found? Like, what's the hardest part when something happens to you and you have to take a break?
Yeah, I think so many times I've pushed through, even though I should have taken a break. And this is like every time, because now I know it, it's like dooming my own self, because I know that's, it's just going to continue and like draw me along, and it's going to take so much more time to recover, to find some peace and some joy and some just well-being. And this is really hard, because I don't know, it's too hard. I mean, if you have an income and you have some savings and some stuff, then it's you can maybe take some break. But sometimes in life there is not that, and you have kind of no choice, or you feel you have no choice. Maybe also because you cannot get yourself to get some help also. It's not like a ball of all these things, of the fear, of the guilt, of the lack of resources, and this can be so scary. And I think this is the worst, is this anxiety that then goes with you in bed at night, and that makes you sleep less, and that then snowballs into even less energy and wakes up with you in the morning and be like and it's tough. And I haven't found yet the way to manage it correctly, because right now I'm running two business basically. So I have one that is the one that feeds me, but it also tires me a lot. And then there is the art business, the purpose, the joy, all of this stuff that kind of fuels me, but also has all the tasks that are not so fueling, like the sales, the marketing, and the social media, which, as you know, are sometimes intense.
It can be a lot.
Yes. And so that's unfortunately the thing that I have to put a bit more on the sides when things go a bit more bad, to try to not like fall again into the burnout hole. And although it's difficult, I feel today I am a bit more at peace with it, because if I can already earn my money with the other job, then it means I don't have so much the pressure of feeding myself with the other one. The other one can take more time. Of course, I want it to be my full-time thing, like now. But it's just year 3, so I have to wait until year 5, right?
No, not always.
Just finding excuses for myself.
Oh, no. And I think, as we talk about that, though, we talked about the scary areas. We talked about the challenges, the hard stuff. And, I always say there is the law of reciprocity. There are more than one possibility for everything. And into entrepreneurship, there's also some amazing benefits. And I love that one of the things that you talk about is the environment. And also the freedom. So share with people some of the benefits of entrepreneurship for you, Coco.
Yeah, the benefits are what made me go into this. And I could not go back, never, no. First of all, there's this peace and quiet that I get in my work environment. So yes, it's my home. So what you see here is both my living room and my studio and my office. But it's fine. I have another room where I can kind of go and rest and change the environment. And this works, and I have the light of the day, and I have the silence, and I have the chair I need and that I can turn onto. And I don't have to commute. This was really a big thing for me as well, because with a sensory processing disorder and sensitivity to chemicals, it's really, really difficult. And this is, for example, something that I didn't know before for a long time. That's, all the perfumes, all the movements of the people, or even also just standing, because my knees tend to hurt, other conditions. But all these things makes it like, for me, like a roller coaster. Being in a bus is like, nope. And of course I have to do it from time to time, but like this I can avoid a big part of what was tiring me and exhausting me and making me feel sick. So I can eliminate things or isolate things. I can also decide how to manage these things and choose when it's best to do them. When do I have the energy to take that bus to go meet someone? And what is happening in my life 2 days before, 2 days after, to give me sort of a leeway to handle all the happenings in my life. And yeah, this is probably the freedom part, is my agenda. I am the one who makes it. So if I need that day off, I can clear it. Of course, it's not necessarily a comfortable things, because you have clients, you're afraid that they might at some point just up and leave if you do it too often. But there's also some way to find that is still fulfills the expectations that get you the contracts at the end of the day. But there's a lot of things that are very reasonable to do, but I think I put so much pressure on myself, basing myself on the standards of, again, this average, or even, it's not even average, actually. Everyone works too many long hours and in conditions that are not good for for their brain, like, or this, and yeah, so learning to be flexible, it can be learned eventually, I think, with years and experiences and planning a little bit around it, but without over planning, that we spend then days planning, because this is also the risk, right? Like you said earlier,
Yes.
putting the structure is work. But the possibility to do it and to arrange it like blocks that can also move with your change, with your well-being, is, for me, like, it would be impossible otherwise. Like, if I was in a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 and I had to every day go at this hour, I cannot see how this could work, because some days I would start exhausted right at 9 and I would never be able to raise up, and then it would just snowball until maybe I find finally a weekend in which I have had enough to rest, and then 3 days and then down again the energy and the exhaustion of being in an open space with like people and noise and perfumes, and so depleting that I could simply not. I would just be sick all the time. So I'm allowing myself not to be sick with this life choice.
I'll tell you, that has really been one of the biggest benefits of entrepreneurship for me, is the impact on my health, being able to take the breaks when I need them, to do the things when I'm like, okay, my energy, my brain, all this stuff's aligned for this, but also being able to structure my environment so that I'm not constantly being attacked by someone's perfume or the glaring lights and working inside of a building with no window and no possibility of going outside regularly. And, all of these things impact our health and well-being. And we don't, I think so often we get conditioned to just suffer through it. And we don't realize what a big impact it makes, especially on our creativity, our innovation, our joy. And I think one of the benefits of entrepreneurship is truly stepping into our joy. For me, it has been to be able to fulfill and live my passions and purpose because no one else has been doing what I'm doing in this way. And there is this freedom of also breaking out of what everybody else says, oh, this is what you should do. It's like, no, have I asked myself what I want to do? And that is a huge benefit of entrepreneurship to me.
Yes, definitely.
So Coco, tell people where they can go find your amazing Birds Against Bullshit, where they can find your other work, where they can connect with you on social. How do people get in touch with your glorious and wonderful self?
Thank you. You flatter
And
me
if
too
you
much.
do want to get a box with her work in it, and you do want to have energize and restore yourself and learn ways to do it, make sure you check the show notes because we've got a wait list coming out. You can go ahead and see that you want to be the first one identified. Let me know. Raise your hand. I want to know about Energize and Restore Experience Day because we got boxes with her art in it. So, Coco, where do they find you?
First of all, I was there last year and it was amazing. So yes. Where they find me? Well, I have this website, cocomuano.com, on which you can find all the little things I do. But you can also follow me on Instagram on @coco.muano, and there, well, I haven't been very active this last few months because I'm pacing myself to preserve myself, but I'll be back. I'm always back. Posting new things and the odd roller skating video too.
Those are my favorite. I love the roller skating videos.
And
so guys, go check her out. Yes, at CocoMoino.com. Where else?
I'm working on a project. It's not live yet, but I'm working on a blog. So I'm hoping soon to be able also to share about my experience and my daily life as an autistic AD with dyscalculia dyspraxia, as an entrepreneur, a freelancer, an artist, and just myself, And I look forward to start this, but I'll make everyone aware of this on all my channels.
Oh, I am so excited to hear that. This is going to be you shining a light on the journey in that work-life harmony, because it's not just about accessible work, it's about an accessible life, as you shared. Thank you so much for being a guest today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences and insights into what it is to choose a different path in your career and to go against the prescribed graduate and go get a job with someone else. And if you'd like to learn more about ways to support your energy through your career journey, check out whittingtonwellbeing.com. We'll see you in the next edition. As we wrap up this episode of Beyond Chronic Burnout, I want to remind you of your incredible brilliance. Embrace your uniqueness and know that your journey is one of strength and compassionate curiosity. I'm Carole Jean Whittington, and I'm so honored to be on this journey with you. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn. And for more energizing episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube at Beyond Chronic Burnout. Let's continue thriving together, my friend. Remember, you have the power to break free from burnout and unleash your authentic self. Until our next engaging conversation, take care and keep shining brightly.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week where the energy's strong. Beyond chronic.